Hi, Tom. Really good to have you on board one of these fireside chats. So we've been talking about this for a while, but we got there. We've been able to find some time, which I appreciate you don't have much of.
Yeah, it's very, very much the graveyard shift, Friday after work. But thank you for having me on.
No. It's great to have you. I appreciate, like you said, you are a busy person. Before we sort of get into it, it'd be really interesting to understand a bit more about your background. So I don't mind. Do you mind sort of just giving us a bit of an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, so obviously my name's Tom. I am a PE teacher at a secondary school in Scunthorpe. I am from Scunthorpe originally. Actually, currently live in Wakefield now, so I have a little bit of a commute each day. Started off my teaching career at this school. Actually, did my teacher training here. Went away, did a little bit of supply work, worked in some pupil referral units, saw kind of full variety of schools. Came back to this school and filled in like an IT teaching position initially, and then from there, kind of weaseled my way back into the PE department because that was kind of where I wanted to be. But I guess the IT side of things will kind of lead into the journey a little bit later on. So something I've obviously always had an interest in, studied at A level, always like tinkering about with tech and kind of seeing what's new and what's out there. Yeah, but then been a PE teacher here since 2011, 2012. Started then pastoral leadership in 2013. So I've done that now for 13 years, which makes me feel very, very old. So when parents come back and say, "Oh, you used to teach my kid," and I say, "Oh, yeah, what do they do now at college?" No, they're married with two kids, and oh my god, they can't be that age. But yeah, having that realization that I've done it for a while, and then I guess part of that, I kind of felt like I'd got not stuck, but there weren't really many opportunities coming up here in terms of going on to senior leadership teams. I kind of, I don't know, not necessarily self doubt, but looked at myself a little bit in terms of where do I go next? Because all I've ever done is teaching and PE teaching, and I wanted to kind of advance myself and see what I could do. And that kind of coincided a little bit with the introduction of AI and tools there, which will kind of, I guess, form the basis of most of our conversation.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's amazing. And by the way, everybody who might be watching this, it is a really nice day on that Friday. That might be, that you can think of. It was about 27 degrees. But as Tom reminded me, he may have a really nice day today, but he has also been in the snow, the wind, and the rain, and everything else for the rest of the year. So it's, for one day of sun, there
Yeah,
was a
we'll enjoy
lot.
it while it's here. The sunglasses have been out today. Yeah.
Amazing. One of the key things, obviously, we want to talk about, and I think is really interesting to understand, is your sort of journey because you now run chalkd.Ai, and it'd be really interesting again to sort of understand. I suppose first of all, um, where did the idea come from? And then sort of talk us through a little bit about your journey as well, in the sense of how you then taken the idea and started developing it, and also, where you are now.
Yeah. So Chalked is the website, and I've done one or two of like these kind of little mini interviews, and it's only when you have these conversations in person that you realise that Chalked is quite a difficult name to suggest because everyone either says chalk on its own or chalked with an ed from the proper spelling, but it is just the word chalk with a d at the end. Some of that name, again, full transparency, because that's kind of the way that I've always worked with building this. It was about the buying the domain name to have like a proper word .com or .ai. The cost was just too much at the time. So for chalked ai.com, which is where the website is at, it was something like £4 for 2 years. And at the time when I didn't know where this would go or what it would do, it was like, okay, for the sake of £4, it's worth the risk. Some of the other prices you were looking at a couple of £100 for 1 year. So the naming side of things came kind of linked to that really. But yeah, the initial idea actually came pre AI tools. The biggest, I guess, headline or the snippet, if you like, is just that I hated marking. And when I've done these talks before, I am very mindful that I'm a PE teacher and that we do not have it tough in any way, shape, or form when it comes to marking compared to other departments. So before the English teachers come for me and the history teachers start slamming the laptop shut, yeah, that realization is there. I know that we get it easy, but it was more not actually sitting down and the time it took, which was a part of it, but it was more the discussions around the subjectivity of marking. So when we spoke as a department, a colleague of mine, he was like a moderator for OCR, which was the course we were doing at the time, and there were 3 mark bands, and we'd go to him and say, okay, what's the difference between like a basic understanding and a sound understanding?
Yeah.
Like, is it a number of examples? Is it a certain term? Is it I don't know, keywords that have to be in there? Where does that overlap come? And it was like, okay, from basic to detailed, we were quite confident with maybe where that looked. But sometimes from mark band 1 to mark band 2, or mark band 2 into mark band 3, we'd have hours of discussion. Well, why is it that? And what tells you it's that? And again, some of it was has been a bit awkward on or as you do with your colleagues, but part of it was we generally just didn't know. And we'd speak out to the exam board and say, okay, is it 3 examples or 5 examples? And they'd say, no, it's professional judgment. So then we kind of like get annoyed, like, well, what if my professional judgment is different to another school's, and so on. So the idea originally came was, what if there was like a place that would just do this, and kind of just give us that feedback straight away. So everyone's getting the same feedback based on whatever is inputted into whatever this system looked like. So the initial ideas actually involved me speaking to some coding website developers in like the Philippines through websites like People Per Hour and Fiverr and those type of jobs, just to say, look, could this be done? And all of them came back with pretty much the same message. Yeah, it's fine. We can do that. Are you just looking to do it for OCR for PE? And I was like, well, if this is going to be a business, or is this going to be something that's growing, let's do every subject, because there must be things like that across the board.
Yeah.
And then based from those conversations, when I started to explore, even just in Scunthorpe, there were like 13 schools close by. And I know obviously from working with those colleagues that every school does something slightly different. They all teach slightly different courses, different modules, things like that. So the possible database for this system that I had in mind, my brain actually just couldn't handle how big it potentially would be, even like from a PE angle, to then start to add in English, maths, science, and so on. It was kind of like, okay, this is going to be a hell of a lot of work, and it's either going to cost millions to make, or it's just not going to be doable. So the developers I spoke to kind of said, look, start with PE, get it working in your school, and then let's kind of see where it goes from there. And again, full transparency, I thought, nah, sounds like too much hard work. I'm not doing that. I'd have to download every spec. I'd have to have an understanding of every spec as well, from every course. And then I'd have to have examples of work to test what output was coming. And it just was never going to work. It was never going to be feasible. But at about that time was when the first kind of AI models started to be released. And again, with them then being granted internet access fairly soon afterwards, it was then like, okay, well, this machine or this system can actually go off and do that legwork for me. They have access to every spec and every example, and there's exemplar coursework out there. So that's where the kind of road into it becoming an AI product started from.
That's amazing. So the thing is, everything, and by the way, don't take this as but because you sort of go, that looks too hard. You sort of wait for the next tool. And you're right, AI at the moment is taking away so much pain from everybody, from all the full sort of process. I think that's really, really interesting. And I suppose from a perspective of, because you understood the pain, and by the way, do you think this is why, because I get asked, there's lots of teachers who sort of go, I think I've got a solution. And do you think do you think the innovative nature of teachers is because of the fact that, you have to manage lots of children and work out what their learning styles are, how to get the best out of them? Do you think that is part of the reason, or do you think?
Yeah, probably ingrained in there somewhere of no day is ever the same in teaching. You come to it thinking I'm teaching, I don't know, lessons 1, 3, and 4 and 5, and think your day's mapped out for you. Next thing, you pulled here, there, and everywhere, and you've got this thing that's arrived. And yeah, you do have to adapt quite a little bit and be innovative in that element. And I guess for me, the IT interest or background is what led to thinking, i.e. computer system. I'm sure other teachers have some really good systems that maybe are more manual or more practical. So when you go into like some primary schools and you see behavior charts and tokens and things like that work just because that person has had a a problem and they needed a solution, it probably does lend itself quite well to come up with something a bit not necessarily out there, but a solution to the problem that you have.
And do you think now, because obviously you did the sort of the gap between not having sort of that much AI to now a lot of AI tools being around, would you promote the idea of doing more proof of concepts and basically just writing stuff down that, just get it into one of the many sort of AI tools like Claude or whatever it might be?
Yeah, so initially my plan to build this, even when the first AI models came out, was that I definitely wasn't an expert in it. We had a guy coming to school by chance. He saw an assembly that our head teacher did, and he just offered, if you need some help with AI or AI can help in any way, let me know and I'll come in. So we had an initial meeting with him, and I asked if I could come along again, just because I had an interest in AI and what it could do. And it was really difficult to get hold of. And again, with his own professional work and things like that, it just maybe didn't move as quick as the school needed it to. And maybe at that time, the AI systems were not quite as advanced as they are now. So we had a few ideas, and he basically said that marking, well, we told him marking is the biggest time consumer for teachers, full stop. So that was what we wanted him to look at. He basically said, yep, it will work. There's no issues around why it wouldn't work and what we can do with it. And so, because it didn't really take off with the school, I dropped him a message and just said, look, do you fancy grabbing a coffee at some point? And let's share ideas and see what can go on from there. And then at the same time, my best friend is a graphic designer. And again, he's worked with some really big companies, and he's forever telling me about design and user interface and user experience. And I'm previously I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, great. Now I'm like, okay, tell me more. But yeah, the original idea was that we'd go at it as a three-way team. So I'd have the teacher input, would have like an AI guy in the chair to link it to superheroes. He'd be the brains of the outfit, and then my best mate would make it look pretty. That was the rough idea of the start of the company. And then again, just through everybody's time, having kids, own professional work, wanting to, I don't know, pursue their own things. It basically never happened. My mate said, look, I'm happy to do some mock-ups. It'll not take me too long, but I can't be fully involved, which was fine. And again, all the way through it, he's kind of helped do some bits as well, which I'm really grateful for. So yeah, then it became a case of you either go this alone or it doesn't happen. And at the time, my workflow was basically to take the screenshots of the mock-ups that my friend did, drop them into chatgpt and say, this is a website I want to build, can you give me the code for it? And then I was having to manually copy the code, paste it into a text file, save the text file, go into the terminal, push that file live. So there's about a 5-step process for every change, and then load it up into like a locally run browser just to see what it looked like. And then anything that was wrong, I'd have to go through that whole process again. So I can remember going backwards and forwards, like the title wasn't quite in the right place. And it took me about 10 iterations to get it to move about that far across the screen. And it was like, okay, it's not quite there. Move it a little bit further. And like, obviously you prompt it with your general language and tell it what you want it to do. And then having to find that part of the code to replace it was interesting because it was nice to see it gradually come up with the outcome that you wanted, but it definitely was time consuming and nowhere near the tools that are available now, where you can just talk to your computer and say, hey, shift that title up a bit for me, and within seconds it's gone. But from that original part, that was from like October time, and then by the February, I think the term vibe coding had kind of been fully coined, so that helped a little bit. But what I was actually doing, and again, probably from a teacher mindset, was I was getting different AIs to moderate the work that the other AIs did. So after I asked ChatGPT to set up this page, it would give me the code. I'd then drop it into Gemini and say, what do you think to what ChatGPT's done? Tell me where it's gone wrong, and kind of played them off against one another, which was, again, interesting. And again, it was interesting to see how they all did it different ways. But yeah, once vibe coding became a thing, I had the main basis of the website was actually already built, and the logic and the AI handoffs in the background was actually kind of pretty much there. But it coincided with the 6 weeks holiday, and there was an application called Kiro that launched, and I just saw a post about it on Twitter that said, hey, check this out, it will build websites for you. And I was like, okay, we'll try it, see what it is. And again, at the time I was into what I was doing, But yeah, for 2 weeks they opened access, like almost unlimited access, and for that 2 weeks in the summer holidays, it was like, okay, my boys at the time would have been 2 and 4. They were the terrible sleepers and still are. But those late nights sat on like a beanbag next to a bed while you're waiting for someone to fall asleep. It was okay. I've got unlimited credits here. I'm just going to nail this website. So yeah, that was kind of how Chalked was built to its kind of production ready stage. Was through using Kiro's free access and some sleepless nights.
That you put yourself through a lot of pain.
Yeah,
But
I don't know how I came out the other side of it now. I look back at it, but yeah, it was interesting to do it. And again, at points you feel like a bit of a fraud because it's not your area of expertise. You don't really understand fully what's going on. But then to have something at the end that you've made that works and does what you want it to do is it's quite a proud moment to sit there and go, yeah, that's cool.
and you've got people using it as well from different schools, yeah.
Yeah, so thankfully, my head teacher, as I said, is really pro AI. So he's kind of allowed it to roll out in our school. So at first, it was just a handful of teachers that came forward and said we'd like to use it. Then it was one person from each department just to have a trial to give some feedback. And again, thankfully, in October, Kiro, not this October's gone, the October before, Kiro did something with their credit system where they'd wrongly charged for something, the credit rate was too high, and they opened it up for basically 2 months of access to paid users. So then it was like, okay, it was almost like absorbing superpowers. It was like, right, I've got 2 months where I can just do whatever I need to do to get this fully polished and ready. So at that point, it was like, okay, get as many people using it free of charge, get the feedback, implement that feedback, and then build from there. So some really good ideas from colleagues. And then this year, done like a bit of a bigger pilot with a local college, to a point now where from September, I think they're actually employing somebody whose sole job will be on an admin basis to upload work and papers into Chalked, just to do their marking for them effectively.
That's amazing, because you know all those steps, I think are just spot on in the sense of I think that obviously vibe coding is definitely now there, and I think there is no, I don't think there's any imposter syndrome in the sense of you know the pain probably as well as anybody else, and coding now is the thing that's becoming easier, and I think that's really strong. And I think the fact you're basically giving out to customers or potential future customers and getting feedback and that sort of stuff again, is exactly what you would do in any business. So I think it's all really, really strong. Are there things that you think you learned from that you would do differently, or if you had your time again?
Yeah, I've tried to, like, everything I've done with Chalked, I've tried to just go based on like a common sense approach, which is probably terrible from a business angle. But things like the college just dropped him an email and said, look, do you want to try it? Again, they're now using it, and there'll be a conversation about what the charge looks like with them. But for me at the moment, I'm happy that they would, for example, use it at cost. So this idea originally was just to stop me having to do marking. So there's no I guess like money driving factor behind me or behind Chalked. It needs to make a little bit of money to cover the API costs and things like that. But again, my idea with it is to try and keep it as cheap as possible for schools and teachers, basically to have access to this to save time. And I think I said on a different podcast, if it pays for a takeaway once a week, I'm cool with that. And again, if we had a conversation before we came live about going to Centre Parks, if it can pay for that, I'm cool with that. Yeah, I might have to do very
During
well.
The holidays.
Yeah, definitely in the school holidays, I'll have to do really well for me able to go to Centre Parks. But again, those things would be nice, but they're definitely not the motivating factor behind it. But I guess in terms of things that I would maybe have done differently, I would maybe have tried to go in. I know I did originally try to go into it with two other people. I guess I probably would have made sure I did go into it with somebody, just to have that, I guess, guidance. And I've been fortunate that I've met people like yourself and Sarah, and going down to Bet and just talking to people there. I've been really lucky in terms of the, I guess, community around Edtech platforms are really supportive. So there's been a lot of support there, but it would be nice to have someone who's kind of like in it with me, so to speak. So to say, no, that I don't like how that works. This is not there. Whereas at the minute, sometimes you send stuff out to the teachers and they use it. Some come back and say, yeah, like it. Some people come back and say, yeah, could you add this in, which is really useful. Some people just don't use it. So then you kind of like, so again, maybe that would be an angle that I would, if I could do the time again, probably do that, or wait 6 months until vibe coding existed. It might have been the other way to do it again. Save me a lot of copying and pasting.
Yeah. But what would you have done when your children are still up?
Yeah, true, yeah.
Oh man, no, I'd say, I think the thing is about having somebody else is also just bouncing those ideas. I think it just makes it doesn't because I think those early days in the business, I'm assuming anyway, from your perspective, can also feel a bit lonely in the sense of, is it the right thing? Is it not the right thing? And no one has those answers, but sometimes bouncing them off even makes you just go, cool, let's just do it. But I don't know.
And it's the unknown things as well. Like you think starting up a website is fairly straightforward, but then you start to then think about, okay, what if this marks something wrong and someone comes back and says, I'm really not happy about this, how do you deal with that? Someone pays for the service and suddenly then they're a customer, they're not just somebody trialing it for you. What does that look like? There was an incident 2 weeks ago. I didn't have access to the platform, something to do with an API key. So for about 6 days, I didn't have access to anything. It just said, Google are looking into this for you because it's hosted on Google Cloud. So at that point, you're like, okay, well, if this is, I don't know, if people are relying on this at this point, how does that look? So those things there, again, it would have been handy to have maybe someone that has experienced some of this before to guide through that. But again, thankfully, there's a lot of people around that do offer that help. And again, through conversation, it seems like a really supportive community.
It is. I think I agree with you. I think the education community is really, and the EdTech community is really helpful. And some of these things you're talking about also, some of the really established companies, because it's all about the scaling. And sometimes people don't think enough about scaling. So even some of the bigger companies, unfortunately, the systems go down in the sense of either not having a disaster recovery sort of type of approach and stuff. But I think ultimately, it's like I say, it's something that everybody has to work out. But you're right. I suppose having somebody else with maybe who's done it before is a good thing. But doing the way you're doing it, which is the reaching out to people, I think is probably the right thing in some ways because people have different approaches and different opinions.
Yeah, and again, I guess that comes back to that thought of trying to do like the common sense approach. So I guess in professional life, working in a school, if you were stuck with something or you wanted some advice, you would go and ask someone who perhaps has experienced it before or someone who's been there. So yeah, that was kind of the angle that I took with anything that's kind of cropped up along the way.
And if you're gonna, well, two questions really. Where's next? What's your ambition next? Apart from just getting a takeaway every week.
Yeah. The honest answer again, and to be fully transparent, is I don't know. There's a few different angles. I've kind of spoke to different people. I would like to try and get somebody in and on board with me. I think I'm still working full time as a PE teacher. Still have a pastoral role. I'm actually the lead for AI in my school now as well, so there's some responsibility there. So again, time is a bit of a constraint. The boys are sleeping better now, ever so slightly. So I do have a bit more time on an evening to still get stuck into this. But it would be really nice to have somebody come in, whether that's some sort of investment where they come in and they take a portion of the business and they help to grow it, whether it's someone to come in and work in partnership, whether it's, I don't know, an existing tool. I'm not tied by any stretch to the name chalkd or anything like that. So if someone has a place for chalkd within their product, please obviously get in touch and yeah, it'd be good to talk to people and see what offers and avenues there are to explore.
Yeah, I think so anybody listening and we a number of businesses watch, so it is a really good tool, and I think you've done an amazing job. And I think you're right. I think going to the next stage might be worth, if anyone's interested, coming and speaking to you. I think that'd be a really good thing as well. I agree. I think
yeah, and again, if that isn't the case, then it will just be a case of doing that kind of manual, getting in contact with schools, saying, do you fancy trying it? That's very much what happened with my school and with the college. The feedback's been really good. Some bits they've asked for to be added. So one of the guys, maths teacher using it at the college, had asked for basically like an analytics type portal. So once Chalkd had actually marked the work for them, there was then a way to go back in and look and track students over time. So there's a little bit of like a database element there. They can then look at like class performance over time. So from more of like a strategic or leadership point now, there's some tools kind of coming in. Probably worth mentioning that it doesn't just do marking or that's its kind of main focus, but it'll handle coursework, any level, any subject, any exam board. Similarly, it'll do written exam papers. So that's what the college used it for. They did 148 maths papers, and within 48 hours, they were sat down with the students doing what they called therapy. So going through which questions they got right, which questions they got wrong, what topics they needed to focus their revision on, and basically having that one-to-one interview with them. And then again, from a leadership perspective, their leadership team were able to look at 2 or 3 units instantly and say, these are our area of focus that we need to deliver before the full A levels. So there was some real positivity there from that kind of output. And then built in, there are other tools which I think of as fairly standard, because you can ask a standard AI tool to produce these for you now. So a lesson planner, report writing, the data analysis tool is pretty cool, but again, you can drop that into Gemini, ChatGPT, whichever you choose, and it will give you a very similar response. But my idea was, and again, if you could see my screen, there's about 40 tabs open at the top. And I know lots of teachers have a similar looking web browser. So the idea was to try and keep it so it wasn't another tab to have open. Try and get everything kind of under one roof. But yeah, coming, I guess, back to that, not having another tab. The next step was, and this is now ready and is live to use. There's now a Chrome extension. So basically, Chalkd will run wherever you work. So, for example, if you open up Google Docs and you hit the Chalkd icon that will just be floating in the corner, it will then say report writer. You can then type in list of 5 kids' names, select from a quick drop-down menu whether they're doing particularly well, whether you'd like them to improve, or they're doing okay. And then basically it will give you 5 individual reports. They're all unique, assigned to that particular student. And again, you obviously could put a full class in. Similarly, if you have some work open on Google Docs, you could click the mark work feature and it will read what's on the Google Doc and it will mark it live for you and give you the feedback there.
So you're looking for a full teach. You're looking to basically do it for full teachers, basic I'm trying to control dashboard, stroke, sort of all the tools that they need to basically deliver the lesson.
Yeah, the original idea was to I guess overcome the marking backlog type of thing, but then when you open up a website or a portal and there's just 2 buttons there that says like coursework and exams, I was a bit like, okay, it doesn't really look like it offers much. What else could I get it to do? What else eats into teachers' time? And again, writing reports at the end of a term, quite often teachers will use copy and paste, which again has worked for many years. But again, it would be nice for those students to have something that's like a little bit individual, a bit unique. There's a box in there. So the example I use when I do live demos is that I always put me in. I always say has done really well, but then in the box next to it, I always put forgets to bring his PE kit. So then when it gives you the churn out, it says that you've worked really well in lesson, but a target to improve on will be to bring your PE kit to every lesson. So you can kind of make it unique and personalized to your students as well. It's not just generic AI output. They are personalized reports.
Or even just a standard, because I know, like, profiles and stuff, they're just, word replacements and things.
Yeah.
Which is not very personalized.
Yeah. But yeah,
That's
the
amazing.
idea was to take away those time-saving elements that don't always bring a lot of value to the profession. So again, marking-wise, some kids kind of live and die by the score on the paper at the end when it comes to mock exams and practice papers and things like that. Some kids are not fussed in the slightest by that. And you as a teacher, you just want to kind of work out where are they at, what do I need to reteach, what do I know is secure in the knowledge, and again, is, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours at night sat going through those papers worth it to give a kid a number on a sheet, or is it actually worth sticking it into a computer, going off to grab a coffee and coming back and saying, okay, your class does really well in this section, but you need to focus more on this. And as a teacher, that is far more valuable to me anyway than a number on a sheet.
Yeah. See, that's where I think the massive added value is because you're a teacher and you understand what's going on in the school. And you're not there's a lot because there are a lot of products out there sometimes where they're there for education, and you can sort of understand where they originated from, but actually to really make sure they add the right level of value, you probably need, you either need to be embedded into a school from the company perspective, or you need to be actually working in a school to understand all those, I suppose, environmental things as much as anything else.
Yeah, and again, the idea of chalkd was let's just keep it super simple, because I know from an IT perspective, you talk about such a range of ages, I guess, if nothing else, in terms of teaching, from newly qualified teachers kind of fresh out of university who you would think would be more in line with modern tools and things like that. Oh, it's not always the case. And similarly, there'll be some teachers who really are not into technology and don't want to learn another tool. So again, the purpose of it was to keep it down to as fewer clicks as possible, not be anything new that you have to learn. Again, if you can upload a file to a computer, you can use chalkd. That is kind of the long and short of using the tool. There's nothing fancy with it. You don't have to type anything in. You just simply click your subject, upload a mark scheme, upload the work, select the kid's target grade and click go. The idea was to just keep it as simple to use, but almost, like you say, have that value of output as well.
Yeah, man. I love it. I think that's really, really, I think it's ingenious. I think it's great. Love it. I think, the product itself, great product. I think, so I think, if anyone, again, if anyone's listening and they're interested, same with schools, I should imagine you'll be quite open to, obviously, schools coming to you and trying to understand what chalkd can do for people. And I appreciate your time. So I appreciate we're sort of getting there in the sense of, well, one, it's after school hours, but it's also, you've got to get back to your kids and things. Are there three things that if you were trying to get from this conversation that you would like, what would those three things be?
Well, you said you weren't going to ask me any difficult questions, Nick. That's a real curveball at the end of a meeting. I guess the first thing, and I guess what I need is, and again, I've said this on another podcast, I am just a PE teacher. I'm not a coder. I'm not a developer. I'm not a businessman. I'm a PE teacher that has an interest in technology. So I guess some expertise would be kind of one thing that I'd really like to, I guess, get access to from it. Secondly, would probably be in terms of like the exposure, like you say, of anyone wanting to trial this would be really welcome. Happy again for people to trial it. It's on a freemium model, so you can try it for free, see what it's like. If you like it, great. If it's not your thing, that's cool. So yeah, more exposure to get more feedback, I guess, to add tools in that are actually going to add value to teachers' lives, and I guess try and get there before some of the big companies do, because I think it's a matter of time before this becomes a mainstream thing, because I can't imagine exam boards are going to be happy paying out thousands of pounds a year for teachers to do marking for them when systems can do it fairly and as well. I guess the as well bit as well to add in, the whole purpose of building chalkd has been that it works with intolerance. So I guess if people are worried about accuracy or things like that, every kind of test has been, does it mark, and does it mark with intolerance of what exam boards lean to? So hopefully that's a reassuring factor. Yeah, that's two in it. Maybe the third one is maybe to hopefully inspire some other people to have a go at doing stuff. At the minute, my school, we had a conversation last week about what we can look at Edtech wise in school that we pay for. What can we build of our own to replace that? So there's couple of tools, and when you add up those subscriptions over a year, they cost literally tens of thousands of pounds, and some of them we think with vibe coding now we probably could rebuild and have just sitting locally. So if you're sitting there with an idea or a pain point, whether it's an education one or not, my advice would be spin up a tool, whether it's Codex. I use anti-gravity from Google just because it's kind of what I've got used to using. Kiro is still out there and I think still doing really, really good stuff, and I made some huge advancements with that. Claude obviously have Claude Code as well, so there's quite a few tools out there to find the one that you like and have a go will be my, I guess, maybe third thing. Maybe I can inspire someone else to build something that saves them some time or solves a problem.
Yeah, I love that last one as well. And I think, if you don't mind, obviously people might want to get in contact with you,
Yeah,
and talk about things. And you know, again, it all comes back to, I think, like we've talked to you before. Sometimes it's really good and nice, and you know, you know, maybe it's, I don't know. I always feel sort of cringy when I say it, but you know, it's always nice to sort of oil those cogs and make the cogs work around the education system, because I think it's important.
yeah.
Sure.
And again, I know from the conversations I had, and I for people listening, I met Nick through his wife Sarah, who it was just a chance message prior to the Bet conference of, do you fancy grabbing a coffee at some point? And we just had a chat, and then have been in touch quite a few times since. So again, reach out to people. I'm happy to help. I've put on my LinkedIn a few times if there are any schools that want any help with getting AI embedded or sorted in their school, or want any advice around writing their AI policy or doing some CPD. I'm more than happy to help. Aside from the chalk stuff, if I can help and do my part, then I'm cool with that.
Amazing, amazing, and a massive again. Thank you, Tom, for your time. It's really, really appreciated. You know, I think the journey you've gone down, it will be inspirational to people. I think, you know, like you say, have a go, crack on, and see what comes out of it. I think now you're right. I think with the way that AI is going, it's very easy and quick to knock out a proof of concept at least. So, you know, absolutely, you know, if you've got some good ideas, or you feel you've got some good ideas, test them out, you know, as quickly as you can.
Yeah,
Uh,
and thank you to you for inviting me on, Nick, because I know obviously your time's precious as well.